We didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, but the Supreme Court ruled in a case challenging the legality of DACA, which is the program been in place since the Obama era. And very quickly remind you the background before I tell you how problematic this was. President Obama was asked during his presidency several times, could you please issue an executive order that would basically say that if people are in this country because their parents brought them illegally into America when these kids were minors, so these kids didn't really break the law themselves, their parents or whoever brought them here broke the law, could you please make an executive order to change the law and simply give these kids either citizenship or a path to citizenship? President Obama said in response to the many leftists urging this, which is essentially giving either citizenship or a path to citizenship to a large number of people who have no legal status in America, could you please do that for us? And he said, President Obama, the lawyer said, the constitutional lawyer said, I don't have constitutional authority to do that. You'll have to get Congress to do that. He made that statement, and yet later in his second term decided, you know what, I'm tired of waiting for the process created by the Constitution to do what I want them to do. So President Obama issued his executive order that created DACA. And it's essentially a federal order that gives freezes in place the legal status of people falling into the category I described. People who are here because their parents or somebody else brought them into America illegally. So it gave them something other than a limbo status, a status toward which essentially protected their being here. Well, there's been many points, discussions along the way. In fact, we talked about in this show a couple of years ago. Really great proposals came out of the Republican majority House back when they had the majority, when they were saying, you know, if you do the following steps, you comply with these things, you can have a path toward citizenship. Another one was you can have a path toward a permanent legal status. And so that was the bill that I was really supporting. There was a bill the Republicans had essentially saying, you know what, if you're here illegally, but you didn't cross the border yourself, you really came here because your parent or someone else brought you here, we'll give you this permanent status. You have to come forward, you have to say who you are, you have a certain window of time to identify yourself, and if you meet these criteria, you haven't committed a crime, you haven't gotten in trouble, that you can be in this status, and you can continue in this status by coming back each year and checking in. It was not a path to citizenship, but was also protection against being deported if you were to come to the attention of the immigration service. So it was a protection that you wouldn't get kicked out, but you couldn't get to citizenship, but you get to a legal permanent status. That was not enough for the Democrats, not enough for them. They could not go with anything other than simply blanket immunity and blanket citizenship for all this group. So now we get around to the Supreme Court decision that came down this past week, the Supreme Court decision in DACA. And the gist of it, what I want to say about it is this. Any lawyer, any judge worth their salt can always find a way to dive into the law, to dive into the nuances of law, and find some basis to get to the decision they want to get to. I mean, it's a sad thing, but it's the same with lawyers. I mean, lawyers, you hear lawyers taking cases and you're thinking, that is ridiculous. You took a case in that circumstance, but lawyers, judges, sadly, can always find a way to wiggle themselves into what is flatly illogical, which is inconsistent with the law, but some argument that says, basically, yeah, here's what I think the law means. So now we have this case before the Supreme Court, essentially the Trump administration saying, you know what, DACA wasn't legal to start with. The Trump administration was amenable to many of the ideas that came out of Congress. They were open to different ideas, helping to get some more stable status for the DACA people here in America. Never could get to agreement. Democrats want nothing less than absolute citizenship. So eventually President Trump said, okay, we, America, we're going to not perpetuate this illegal executive order that President Obama did. You know, we're going to basically move forward and say we're going to end the DACA program because it has no basis in law. There's no law that Congress passed ever allowing this, you know, in limbo status of DACA. And this is something Obama made up even after he acknowledged he had no right to do it. So if we can't get to agreement, you know what, we're just going to end DACA. So the case goes before the Supreme Court. And in the typically unreliable, as I've been calling Chief Justice Roberts, he's kind of like the John McCain of the Supreme Court now. It seems he revels in being the maverick. He revels in doing the opposite of what everyone assumes he will do. He revels in being unpredictable and being the center of attention. And everyone sits home and goes, oh my gosh, wonder what Justice Roberts is going to do. You know, he's the swing vote. So Roberts went with the majority that refused to uphold the Trump administration's effort to end DACA. Or put the other way, Roberts joined the majority that allowed DACA to stand as it is. Now, to be fair to Roberts, and this is why I was saying in the beginning about how, you know, lawyers and judges can always think of some nuanced reason, some in-depth explanation for what they do, Justice Roberts didn't really say that DACA must remain forever. He didn't really say that the Obama administration was right in passing it. He didn't really say the Trump administration has no right to end it. He actually found that the particular procedure followed by the Trump administration violated the APA, the Administrative Procedure Act, essentially saying that that the Trump administration had the right to end DACA, but they didn't do it right. It's kind of like didn't dot your I's and cross your T's, didn't say Simon Says, didn't follow the right procedure. So it appears that Justice Roberts is open to the idea of having DACA end as long as the Trump administration follows more precisely, or in some particular, follows the Administrative Procedure Act. So on the one hand, on this decision, I will say there are leftists lamenting it because they realize what I just told you, that the court did not actually rule that DACA can remain forever and that the DACA people in America have an absolute right to stay here forever. They didn't rule that, but they did strike down the current effort by the Trump administration to undo the DACA plan, but very much left open the idea that if correct procedures follow, yes, indeed, President Trump could end the DACA program. But the larger point I wanted to make about this, and this is kind of my theme for the day. You know, on Mondays, I almost never have a guest on Mondays on this show. I call it my Deep Dive Monday, and I like to dig into one or two topics more deeply. Part of the reason so many conservatives were extremely upset with Justice Roberts siding with the liberals, who, by the way, the four liberals in the Supreme Court, they never fail to be liberal. They never cross over and join the conservatives. They never cross over and say, maybe we should follow the Constitution this time. The liberals on the Supreme Court legislate from the bench. It's what they do. They are the don't follow the law, whatever I feel like doing faction of the Supreme Court. The four liberals simply do. They get to the legislative policy outcome they want, and they find a reason in law to justify it. The conservatives are supposed to be the ones actually following the Constitution, actually following the law. And so there's great angst on the conservative side because, yes, Justice Roberts left open the idea, yeah, we're going to get around, maybe if the Trump administration does this correctly, he can end the DACA program, the illegal DACA program. But the larger point is, in the Obama era, in the 8 years of the Obama era, the endless assault on the idea of America, the Obama administration, among many other things that were just so, just caused great distress among patriots and conservatives, is that there was just an underlying endless effort to weaken, eviscerate, destroy, dissolve, confuse the identity of America, the sovereignty of America, and the rule of law. Everybody knows on the Supreme Court, everyone knows in Congress paying attention to issues, that what Obama did there was no basis for doing. And everyone knew it was part of the larger Democrat effort to undermine the idea of citizenship in our country, to undermine the idea of sovereignty in our country, to move as quickly as the Democrats could while they had power, to grow the number of people in this country who simply have no idea what the idea of America is, no idea what the rule of law means, no idea what the Constitution means. The left is perpetually cultivating a growing percentage of Americans who simply will vote with them on everything. And the left is endlessly cultivating people who will stick with the left because the left tells them what they want to hear, promises them things. Oh, sure, you want citizenship? Okay. We'll ignore the law. We'll ignore the Constitution. We'll give you a path to citizenship. Look at those mean Republicans. Just because you entered America illegally and had no right to be here, why would they be picking on you for that? My point is, the Obama administration worked very hard for 8 years in a whole host of ways to undermine the idea of America, the identity of America, the concept of the rule of law, the concept of sovereignty, the concept of citizenship. This was just one little piece of the Democrat effort, along with abandoning the border, along with allowing hordes of people to cross the border, along with creating sanctuary cities, along with blurring the lines between citizenship and non-citizenship, along with cultivating in a variety of places around this country the right of people who are not legally here to vote. Numerous Democrat-run jurisdictions permitting the idea of voting, along with efforts on the American left to transform the illegal population in America, and the numbers range wildly between 12 to 15 million to 30 million, 35 million, however many. In this great land, there are literally millions and millions and millions of people who have no legal right to be here, and they are just a holding tank. They're in a holding tank the Democrats have created until they have power. When they have the presidency, the Senate, and the House, they will make them all citizens. And it's not because the Democrats are nice people. It's not because they are generous. It's because they see those people as a permanent future Democrat voting base. This is all that Obama was doing in putting that DACA thing into place, was just another little step along the way, cultivating sympathy and cultivating support among the illegal community in America. This is what Obama was doing. This is why conservatives are so distraught with Justice Roberts. He may eventually, be forced to vote and follow the law, although I don't know. I was going to go into a longer thing today about Justice Roberts, but I think I'm going to wrap up the first 5 and say, many, many times in recent years, in recent years, Justice John Roberts, who is our Chief Justice, has simply abandoned the rule of law, abandoned the assumption that his job is to follow the law, and gone along with the trendy, popular thought of America, which is the leftist thought in America. It's easier to capitulate to the left than it is to stand up for what's right. It's easier to capitulate to the left on issue after issue than to stand up for America. But getting around to my theme for today's show, I had this idea, and it felt kind of just too harsh to say it, but the identity of America, the idea of America, the promise of America is slipping away. I hate to say those words, but the identity, the promise of America is slipping away. The Supreme Court's failure, even with an alleged majority of conservatives who commit to follow the Constitution, even the Supreme Court is part of this America slipping away, the rule of law slipping away, going to instead whatever is the most popular, trendy thing to do, which appears to be what is motivating Justice John Roberts. And that, my very fine friends, is today's First Five.